Hi, I'm Andy Jones, host of Art Talk. And of course, you know that because you're watching Art Talk right now. I have taught literally thousands of people how to paint, and if you have any desire to paint, I can show you how to do it. Today, we are going to be painting a bell pepper, and you can see the lovely bell pepper back here. And we're going to talk about a few really important art concepts because that's what we do here on Art Talk. We do a little art and we do a little talking. So today we're going to talk about layering color in glazes and with thicker, more opaque colors. But we're going to start with our white canvas and let that be our brightest highlight that's going to be showing through our pepper. I am here with my good buddy Stephen White. Hi, Stephen.
Hey, Andy. Today I'm going to put some pep into my step.
And you could not have...
Get it? Because we're painting peppers?
Yeah, I've figured
Did you get my joke?
I got it so bad, yes.
Thank you.
So we're going to start off with some apple red, and we are going to make a glaze out of apple red. And I'm also going to put out a little pure orange because we're going to make a glaze from that as well. And I know Stephen is sitting there going, what is a glaze?
What is a glaze?
Well, a glaze, thank you for asking, Stephen. A glaze is a transparent layer of color. I'm putting out some folk art floating medium on my palette, and the floating medium is going to make my paint transparent, but it's not going to slow down the drying time of my paint. All right, I'm going to pick up a number 12 flat brush, and I'm going to load the brush with floating medium, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pick up a little orange, and you can see here on the palette that it is making that transparent. And we're going to come to our pepper, and we're going to start on the left section of this pepper, and kind of up here at the top I'm going to brush on this transparent orange, and that is looking a little too transparent for me. I want to pick up a little bit more color. I don't really want this to be too solid, but I need a little bit more color than I had on there. All right, so this is starting out our pepper with a light glaze of pure orange. Sorry about that. Let's do that again. So with a light layer of pure orange on there. So many colors on my palette, I can't even remember what they are. So I'm going to wipe some of this off my brush.
Andy, this is the second in a series of vegetables that we've painted?
It is. We painted a carrot before and did a little bit different technique on that, but I'm picking up some of my orange and some apple red, and we're going to begin to put this transparent red on our pepper.
Our carrot had no red in it.
That is correct. I'm so glad you can remember those things with a young mind. All right, so I'm stroking this up, just kind of softening it in to that orange. And again, we've got a transparent glaze of red going on our pepper.
Andy, do you like bell peppers?
I hate them.
I do too. What are we doing here then?
Well, I will say that in the world of produce, peppers are among the prettiest vegetables that there are. When you go to a well-stocked produce section and you start looking at all the different things, the peppers come in so many different colors and shapes and sizes, and they're absolutely beautiful. And I love lots of different peppers, don't get me wrong.
Just not bell peppers.
Just not bell peppers. And I always kid my mother because she puts bell peppers in her spaghetti sauce, and I hate it. And when I say, I hate your spaghetti sauce because you put bell peppers in it, her response is, I only put a little and I chop it up really fine. And I'm like, nonetheless, the bell peppers are in there.
They still exist in
and
the
I
sauce.
hate that. She goes, but they're chopped up really fine. And I'm like, still, all of the bad parts of bell pepper are in the spaghetti sauce.
Right.
All right, so let's get a quick shot of this so that we know exactly what we have going on our painting here. You can see that the white of the canvas is showing through those transparent colors. Whew, so one part of our pepper done, and we're going to come over here to this next section, and we're going to do basically the same thing. Some floating medium on my brush, pure orange, and we're making that transparent, and we're going to put some of that over here.
So, Andy, it's my understanding, this is what I've always been taught,
Okay.
that bell peppers, they come in green, yellow, orange, red.
Yes.
They're all the same pepper, just different stages of ripeness.
That is correct. You
Okay.
are absolutely right about that. So, and they're all as horrible, unripe or ripe.
Makes no difference.
Makes no difference. And they just make me burp so bad.
Do you think we're going to get a lot of flack in the comments from people who are big bell pepper fans?
We'll probably get a fair amount of flack, which is fine. I don't mind flack. And it's not the first time I'll get flack for something, and it's not going to be the last time. But, I mean, if somebody wants to give me flack for not liking something, that's okay. Bring it on, because I guarantee that there are more foods that I like than I don't like.
I can actually attest to this. I've heard the foods that you like. It's
Well,
quite a few.
It is. And on lots of different social media things, they'll have these little, like a list of, I don't know, maybe 50 foods. And they're like, put a check by what you won't eat. And I never get to put a check by anything. Unless somebody has a list that has bell peppers on it. But I mean, I'll eat. You're a good Southern boy, so you probably know what head cheese is, don't you?
Did you say head cheese?
I did say head cheese.
The only head cheese I know is the people who watch Wisconsin football.
Those are cheese heads, not head cheese.
Then
But I
don't.
appreciate the effort there, Stephen.
Man, I was trying to give you something. I don't know what head cheese is.
Okay, head cheese is a pork product. That is
That's not what I would have expected.
no, but it's made from the head of the hog and all that entails. So, I mean, if you can think of cooking the head of a pig and then making, you basically just compress it. And
Andy, when we do these episodes,
you learn so much.
I learned so much, and when I edit them, I like to put in pictures of what we're talking about for a visual for people.
You can put in head cheese.
I don't think I'm going to.
It's delicious.
I think it sounds like
It sounds like a.
It sounds too gory to show.
No, it's absolutely not. It's delicious. And I remember celebrating a friend's birthday one year, and we had gone to this restaurant that had been recommended to several of us in the group individually. And so we decided to go, and they're handing out our menus. And one member of our party goes, I know exactly what Andy's going to have as an appetizer. And I'm like, I haven't looked at the menu yet. And I'm like, oh God, what am I going to have to eat? And I looked at the menu and I'm like, oh, they have house-made head cheese. And I'm like, I am there.
How many times a night do you think they get asked, like the waiters, what is head cheese?
It's one of those things. If you know, you know.
Mm.
And if you don't, then no amount of explaining is going to adequately prepare you for it.
The more you know.
It's, and I see the little star going across. Mm-hmm. It's like liver mush. They even have a liver mush festival.
Pass.
I have been to the liver mush festival, and I have to say I was terribly disappointed that they did not have a Little Miss Liver Mush pageant. All right, so I have these two main sections of my pepper done. One is more opaque than the other, and that's perfectly fine. We're going to treat it all the same once we get going, but we need to take a minute and give this a quick dry. I'd like to take a minute to thank Plaid Enterprises for sponsoring Art Talk. They are the makers of folk art acrylics, which I absolutely love using. I've used this paint since I was a young tot, and now that I'm an old fart, I still use this paint. We have a 17-piece set that we've curated just for you. Ordering information is in the description below, and we also have great brushes for you. We have a 7-piece set of Folk Art Select Firm Bristle brushes. These are absolutely incredible. I use them every time I paint. And I've never done that in my entire life. Now, let's get back to our video. All right, we're back and our bell pepper is dry and we've got a few more little sections to get some color on. So I'm going to take a little of my floating medium and some apple red. And I'm going to give this little section over here just a quick coat of red. And if you are a fan of bell peppers, I think you're going to enjoy painting this. And if you're not a fan of bell peppers, it's still a great exercise to learn about layering from transparent to opaque color. So let's just kind of smooth this out so we don't have a lot of brush marks showing in there. All right, so that's another section done. And we can let this hang out for a minute while I put a couple of other colors out on the palette. I'm going to put out a little sap green. And sap green is a very dark, transparent green. And I'm also going to put out a little true burgundy, which is a dark, transparent red color. And we are going to use these complementary colors because they lie opposite each other on the color wheel. I know Stephen was just thinking that exact thing.
I had the wheel pulled up in my head.
Okay, well, I'm glad you did because that is important that you have that visual in your head all the time.
Yep.
Since I've given you so many visuals today that you probably didn't want in your head.
Yeah, I was trying to get anything to get
the head cheese out of your head. And we brought it right back.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Full circle. All right, so we're putting on some of this transparent red on this section that's behind our stem and this other little bit of the bell pepper. And now I'm going to stroke into a little true burgundy and a very small amount of sap green on the same side of the brush. So now I've got a super dark shading color and I'm going to begin just to darken this back area of our bell pepper. And the thing about painting produce is that you can take a lot of artistic liberty and add all sorts of great coloration to your fruits and vegetables. And we're having fun with this bell pepper. Now I've got some red and I've got some dark color on there. Stuck my finger in it, not a big problem. And this time I'm going to start with the dark color I have on my brush. And we're going to pat that dark color on behind this kind of front bit of our bell pepper. And then we're just going to fill in with some transparent red. You don't have to put a lot of paint on the surface. But there we go. So we've got the whole pepper is now covered with some sort of paint. And we're going to dry this and come back and start to darken it. Or not darken it, but add more opaque colors to it. And our pepper is all dry. And this is one of the wonderful things about working with acrylics is they dry very quickly, or you can speed them along and have them dry even more quickly. And you can continue to layer color on color on color without messing up anything you have already complete and the way you like it. So I'm going to take a little bit of my floating medium and more of my orange. This time I'm actually going to have more orange on my brush than I have floating medium. And we're going to begin to layer this on. And you can automatically see or instantly see how much more opaque this is, even though it is still somewhat transparent. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of the apple red without any additional floating medium in it. And we're going to soften and blend a little bit of that into our orange. And we'll add more red over here. Don't worry about getting some up in your stem area. We'll take care of that in a minute. But I'm softening that kind of what's going to be my highlight area and letting this more opaque apple red take up some space here at the bottom of this section.
What is it about bell peppers that you don't like?
The fact that I have them forever. They just keep coming back, just like indigestion with them. The flavor is okay. There are other peppers I like much better. like a nice serrano pepper or even a habanero.
I don't think I taste bell pepper. I think it's just like, it's filler.
Oh no, you taste it.
I don't think I do though.
I
It's
I don't
not.
know.
It's like it's not spicy. It's not like.
No, it's just a flavor. It's definitely not a hot, spicy flavor at all.
Well, it's a flavor that flies under my radar because it's just like a mass. It's just texture. It's just like sustenance. There's nothing with it. Bland. Default.
Well, it's one of those things that if I bought a jar of some kind of salsa that was not, it wasn't some kind of cheesy dip salsa thing, and I thought it was going to be great. So I got it all heated up, dipped my tortilla chip in it, one bite of it, and I'm like, oh my God, that should have just said bell pepper dip. All right, so we've got this section of our pepper taken care of, and we're going to move over here, and we're basically going to do the same thing. Over here, we're going to have more paint than floating medium in our brush, but we want just a little bit of floating medium so it's not quite opaque, and we're going to brush some of this orange up here at the top of our section. And I'm using a number 12 flat brush. I probably could have gone up and used a 3/4 inch flat, but we're playing it safe today. Do you like hot and spicy food?
I do. Yeah, it's just not.
It's just not bell pepper
It's
related.
just not, yeah, it doesn't come from bell peppers.
Well, that's true. They're not a hot pepper. All right. So, what's the favorite spicy food that you love?
I love ramen, like spiced up ramen. That's good stuff. I like. You ever had like Nashville hot chicken?
Yes.
That's really good.
I had that this past weekend. In fact,
Did you go to Hattie B's?
I did go to Hattie B's.
Atlanta. Is that an Atlanta thing?
No, it's a Nashville thing.
Gotcha.
Hattie B's is like, I think Prince's is the real original, and of course I'm going to say this and everybody from Tennessee is going to let me know, but I think Prince's hot chicken was like the first hot chicken, and then Hattie B's came along afterwards. But Hattie B's is the one that we have here in Atlanta, and it's not too far from the house, so I like it. And I usually just get mine hot. I don't do the extreme, I don't even know what they call their, the worst of their heat.
Right.
But I just do it hot, which is enough.
I like crawfish.
All right, so you do eat some adventurous stuff. Good for you.
Crawfish is that adventurous.
Well, I mean, the second heads is, going to get you some side eyes.
Well, look, part of it is like how it's marketed. You say there's fish in the name of
It's better than
crawfish.
calling it mud bugs.
Yeah. If they were called mud bugs, I probably wouldn't, even if they tasted exactly the same.
Well, they are the same.
But they're not called that, though. Like, I'm
Well,
not.
people do call them
I don't
mud
look
bugs.
a waiter in the eye and say, "I'd like to eat the mud bugs, please."
Oh,
like, no.
well, then you're not eating crawfish at the right
If I had to
place.
look someone in the eye and said, "Yes, I'd like one head cheese," I would simply pass away. I wouldn't be able to handle that.
Okay, well, we'll get you out for some good head cheese one day. All right, so I'm adding more apple red on this section. And it's still not completely opaque, which is great. And I'm going to pick up some pure orange. And we're going to start to lighten this edge over here. And apparently, Stephen, this is a fully ripe bell pepper.
Seems that way.
All right, so now we've got some orange going on there. This section over here is still pretty transparent, so we're going to get some more color on this section here, and we want more pure orange than floating medium in our brush. And we're going to brush this color on. And if we had started with opaque color, we wouldn't still be able to get this kind of lighter area in our bell pepper because we would have completely covered up the white of the canvas. And this technique of transparent colors or glazing color on lets us keep that great light area showing. So that's your pro tip of the video.
I should make a special graphic for that.
All right, so we're putting some more apple red down here at the bottom of our bell pepper. And I will say that while I was painting this bell pepper, I had some very good company. I was listening and watching Anthony Bourdain on some of his travels and talk about eating odd stuff. He is just, I think, one of the great ambassadors of food and travel. And, you know, when he says, you know, you eat what's offered and you are, you gratefully accept it because people are offering you the best that they have. And then you see him, you know, in some exotic location. And I mean, head cheese is probably the least of his things to worry about eating. But we were painting this pepper and he was having all sorts of great adventures. Softening our dark mixture. Again, this is sap green and true burgundy. And we're going to put some of that over here. And I'm going to let you know that as we're working on this, it's all going to look a little bit strange until we get that black background in, and then that's really going to make this pepper stand out. So
We're going to spice up this pepper.
We are going to spice up that pepper. Thank you, Stephen. We could not have made it through without that.
You're welcome.
All right.
I'm here all week because I work here.
I feel like I'm here all week too. All right, so we've brought our pepper to this stage, and we need to give it a quick dry so that we don't mess up anything we have created. All right, once again, our, I guess it was that our second or third layer of color on there?
Second.
Second, okay. Well, we're ready for
Or third. I'm saying both in case I was wrong about one or the other, so I can be right about one or the other.
Okay.
I'm playing both sides.
Okay. All right, are you sure you've covered all of your bases?
Second or third.
All right, so I'm going to say we're going to put another layer on now. And I'm not going to use, we're starting to branch away from our transparent colors into more opaque colors. So I'm just going to pick up some apple red, no medium added to this at all. And we're going to brush this on, and we're getting a much redder look to our pepper. And I'm just barely stroking a little color down into our shadow area, leaving that alone. And we're going to come over here and do the same thing on this little section. And it's not going to take much because it's a little portion of our pepper. But now we've got more solid opaque coverage coming on there. Now this little area of our pepper, we're going to do the same thing, but I'm going to start here in our darker areas of this particular section. And bell peppers don't have sharply divided sections. It's just more of an undulating texture to the pepper. So I'm going to kind of cross over this other line into this front portion of our pepper. And we're brushing some of this red on. And then I'm going to pick up pure orange and brush some of that over here on the lighter side. And because we've got a good foundation, I don't have to really worry about covering every bit of the canvas. That's another great thing. These transparent layers fill in all the white spots, so we don't have to fight that as we're painting our pepper. But I want to make sure that our pepper has plenty of color in it, and it isn't kind of a one-note pepper, because you want to have as much visual interest as you can in whatever you're painting. And so keep picking up a little bit more orange each time and blending that down into our red area. And that's how we start to get this soft, light area. And then our main parts of the pepper, we're going to do about the same thing. I'm going to start with some pure orange. And I'm going to brush that on here at the top section of this pepper, or the top section of our pepper. We're only doing one this time. But if you were doing a painting that had multiple peppers in it, remember that each pepper needs to be look like a relative of the other pepper and have some variation as well. So you don't want all of your peppers looking alike. Some could be more orange, some could be more red, some could even have a little bit of green on there. But we're brushing this on and letting it skim off as I'm basically cleaning my brush off. And there was some apple red on there, not to worry about that. We're just working this color off of our brush and onto our pepper. And then I am going to shift over to some apple red and start down here at the bottom and work that more opaque apple red up into some orange. And you want to create a soft transition. Not sure what other vegetables we're going to paint, but they are an endless, fascinating thing to study and to paint, because there's such a variety in vegetables. We have a real big kind of international farmers market here in Atlanta, and it is fascinating to go in there. Have you ever been to the DeKalb Farmers Market?
I have not, but I've heard a lot about it.
Yeah, it is. It's huge, and basically, if it is grown somewhere in the world and eaten somewhere in the world, they have it in this market. And
You're telling me they have bell peppers and head cheese there?
I don't know about the head cheese, but I do know that they have probably every variety of pepper known to man in there. And it's always fascinating. Sometimes when I have out-of-town guests, I'll be like, oh, we should go to the farmer's market. And they're like, oh, that sounds great. And you get there and they're like, this place is huge. I didn't even know they grew some of this stuff. I remember one day was in there and I had a box of curry powder in my cart. And this Indian lady is coming down the aisle and she stops at my cart and she sees what I have in there. She grabs my box of curry powder and runs down the aisle. And I thought, okay, well, I guess she wanted that more than I needed it. And in a minute, she comes running back with a different brand. And she puts it in my cart and she goes, much better. And I'm like, okay. So she was helping me. And sometimes you'll see people and they're looking at some fruit you've never seen before. And they are thumping it and smelling it and squeezing it and having a heated argument over, whatever it is, and you're like, I do not know what they're talking about, but they are determined to get the best one of whatever that is.
They're going to get to the bottom of it.
They're going to figure it out. And it's fascinating just to see the endless variety of fruits and vegetables from around the world.
We'll have to paint an obscure vegetable sometime.
Well, that means we have to have a field trip to the farmer's market. All right, so I just am adding more of this pure orange on there and coming from the top down, and then I'm going to come from the bottom up with some apple red. And we want to have a nice, soft area where the two colors come together, so we don't want a harsh line of color. And I'm going to show you here on the canvas, that's how much paint I have on my brush. So there is obviously not much paint that I'm just stretching this out as much as I possibly can. And that's how you get a nice transition of color. It's just letting it stretch out. So even that I've picked up some paint, I still don't have very much on my brush. And I think that is probably the one thing that I wish I could be there with you while you're painting and just check to see how much paint you actually have on your brush. Chances are it's too much. All right, let's come back to this little bit right here because that's almost dry, or it is dry. And I'm going to take some more orange and intensify that highlight a little bit. All right, and then because we've been putting lots of paint on there, let's take a minute and I'm going to dry this. So if you need to, you can pause the video and we'll be back in just a second. We are back and we've added at least one layer of opaque color onto our pepper, and we've still got some of that light kind of radiating through. And I'm going to put a couple of other colors out on my palette now. I'm going to put out a little tangerine. If you don't have tangerine, you can make tangerine by adding some pure orange to some titanium white. And I'm also going to put out a little bit of pink melon. And pink melon is a nice pinky color that you can make from apple red, white, and a little bit of orange. So that's what we've got going here. We've got lighter versions of both of our red and orange color.
So we're using 2 colors with fruits in the name to paint this vegetable?
Apparently.
Sounds about right.
Okay, I had not even given that the least bit of thought, but thanks for pointing that out.
You're playing checkers, I'm playing chess.
Yes, you are. And I was going to give you a brain teaser, but I'm pretty sure you'll already know this without any...
Hit me.
Do you know what Peter Piper picked?
Pickled peppers.
And how much did he pick? What quantity did he pick?
A plethora.
No. Come on, Stephen.
Purple? No. Pillow.
Peck.
A peck?
He picked a peck, yes.
That's not a word.
A peck is the word. It's less than a bushel and more than a quart. So there you go. So now Stephen has learned what a peck is. Have you ever heard of a bushel and a peck?
I've heard of a bushel.
Well, a bushel and a peck would be that you wanted more than a bushel. So you would get a bushel and an additional peck of whatever it is that you were getting. All right, so I've picked up some tangerine on my brush, and I'm going to start up here where I want the brightest part of this section to be. And I'm brushing a little bit of that on, very small amount at a time. And we're just scrubbing this in, creating a lighter area on our pepper. And because you can see that pure orange is very, very orange and tangerine is much lighter, it has white in it, so it is inherently more opaque. So we didn't want to start off with this. We wanted to kind of work up to our tangerine going on our pepper, and we're scrubbing this in and stretching that out. And again, that's how much paint I have on my brush. There is not much there at all. Better to keep working harder and put smaller amounts on than to put too much on at one time. All right, so we have moved into another technique which is called dry brushing. And let me tell you, you cannot dry brush with a brush that is wet with paint. All right, so we've got a little bit of a highlight starting there. We're not done with that, but we're done enough to move over to this other area of our pepper, and we are going to start to brush on some of this light orange highlight over here, and then we're scrubbing that in, softening that out so that we don't have any harsh or defined edges to the area of our highlight. All right, Stephen, you've told me about some of the spicy foods that you like. What are foods that you don't eat?
I don't like nuts in things.
Okay, I am there with you on that.
I like cashews, but I don't like...
Really?
I like cashews, yeah.
Okay,
But
that's my
and
favorite.
pistachios. Pistachios are good too.
Well, I am a cashew guy.
I
And
but like walnuts, like almonds.
no.
Miss,
I mean,
miss me
almonds
with
are
all that.
okay, but definitely No pecans, no walnuts,
Absolutely.
none of that stuff.
Especially if you call a pecan a pecan.
Well, I'm not going to get into that debate because there is no winning. You probably are doing better to have like some hybrid pronunciation like pecan.
Pecan.
But even that's going to,
Pecan.
it's all going to be too controversial for me.
Yeah, let's not open Pandora's box
If
here.
you opened it already,
Uh-oh. Better seal it.
when you said pecan, you can't
Close the box.
you can't uncrack that nut.
Nice.
Boom boom. I know. I'm here all week.
You
Right.
also work here.
I also work here. Yes, indeed. All right. So just scrubbing this color out. And then surprisingly, I'm just going to go right into some of this pink melon color. And I'm going to add some of that over here. And I don't want too much, but we're putting this on kind of in the center of the section below our orange color. And it is creating a nice light area here on our bell pepper. And it's not bright, but it's just enough to give you kind of a fun little change of color in our pepper. So we're putting some on over here below our orange, and not quite to the bottom and not quite to the edges just yet. So lots of this dry brushing is having a small amount of paint on your brush and simply stretching that color out as far as you can. And if you need to, you can squint at your pepper, and that will help you see if you have any harsh lines of transition between one color and another.
That's another pro tip.
It is. All right. So let's leave, we'll set this brush aside, and I'm going to just pick up another number 12 flat, and we're going to add a little bit of extra dark color on here. So I'm going to pick up some floating medium, and I'm going to start with just true burgundy. So it's transparent on one part of the brush. So now that we have our brush kind of loaded with transparent true burgundy on half the brush and just some floating medium on the other half, I'm going to begin to tap and dab on a little bit of extra darkness where we're creating this kind of undulation in our bell pepper. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this around, and I'm going to come back up the other way, and this time I'm painting on the front section of the pepper, and we're just creating a dark kind of divot, or not divot, cleft in our pepper. Because we, like I said, we don't have really severe sections in this. We just have to create a little divide. And I am letting that come a little bit over on this front section right up here at the top. And then take a look at what we've got here. And that's looking pretty good. So we're going to do the same thing over here on this side. Just bringing some true burgundy right down this area here. And tapping and dabbing that on. Stretching it out one way. Because we don't want a harsh division line there. And then turn it around, and I'm going to bring it back up on this other section of our pepper. And this just creates a dark area, and we don't have a harsh line. Or at least we shouldn't. So that creates a kind of depression in our little bell pepper here. And just for fun, let's go ahead and bring some of this dark color in on this edge of our pepper. And where this is kind of dented in here or curving in, we'll stretch that out a little bit more. And this is how we create that undulation in our pepper. So we've got areas that are kind of bulging and coming forward, and areas that are curving and receding a little bit. All right, so let's get this dry so that we don't mess up any of this that we have on here, and then we'll come back and add some more dark colors. Okay, we are back. Our pepper is once again dry, and we are starting to develop highlights and add some interesting color, and we've added some darkness to our pepper. But I'm going to add another color to my palette now. I'm going to add some sunny yellow. So I'm going to take some of my tangerine and a little bit of sunny yellow, just kind of brush mix those together, and I'm going to brush some of that on, and you can see that by the addition of our yellow we have a lighter, brighter, more intense highlight color going on there, and I just want to get a quick look at that. All right, I'm adding a little bit of sunny yellow to my tangerine so that I start to get a more yellowy highlight. This is like a nice light orange, but I want a more yellowy highlight color. So I'm picking up small amounts of sunny yellow, just brush mixing that in, and you can see here that we've gone from tangerine over here where there's more yellow, and we've just created a gradient of color from orange to yellow here, and we're just brushing some of that on and softening it in a little bit. I think that looks pretty good, and you can easily see where we've got a brighter highlight there. And over here I'm just going to wipe my brush and pick up a little bit more tangerine, and we're adding a stronger tangerine highlight there. Again, nice soft edges. And as I scooched down here a little bit, I need to pick up some pink melon because I want a bit more of that kind of coral pink color over here, and we'll put some over here for good measure. And while we're at it, maybe just put a little bit up there. Doesn't hurt. All right, so we've got red, we've got orange, we've got pink, we've got burgundy. Lots of colors are happening on here, and that's what makes your pepper very, very interesting. All right, I'm going to come back and I'm going to pick up some tangerine, pretty strong amount of paint on my brush, and we're going to dab a little bit of that up here at the top of this section. All right, so we're setting the foundation to put a nice bright highlight up there. And I'm going to take the same tangerine on my brush, and I'm going to put a little bit stronger color here, just kind of across the pepper right there, giving a little bit of a different shape to our highlight area. And I'm going to come back, now that I've got some light color on my brush, I'm going to brush mix in some pure orange, and I'm going to create that lighter color with tangerine and pure orange, and we'll give a little bit of that highlight over here on this section of our pepper. And if you can momentarily go back in time, you'll remember I said that none of this is going to really start to make sense until we get our black background put in there, and I'm not quite ready to go there, but we're almost there. So I'm going to take a little flat brush, and we're going to add some extra darkness kind of around the edge to make this a little easier transition from bell pepper to black background. So floating medium on my brush, I'm going to pick up some true burgundy, and I'm going to put a little bit of sap green on my brush. And it's on the same corner of the brush, so that when I mix these together here on my palette, I get a very, very dark red color. You cannot get this color if I took a palette knife and mixed true burgundy and sap green together. I'm just going to get a really brown color, and I want to be able to easily change my color. If I needed it a little bit more green, or if I need it more red, I can do that quickly by just adjusting the amount of one color or the other right here on my palette. So we're going to start, and we're going to just kind of come right around the edge of our pepper, and we're just softening this color in, and I can use the corner of the brush that has the floating medium on it to create that kind of soft transition. Don't make this look like you have outlined your pepper with this dark color. Make sure that there is variation in the width of this dark area, and then it's a very smooth transition. That is extremely important. It's almost never a good idea to just outline something. All right, so again, true burgundy, sap green, same side of the brush, other side of the brush has floating medium on it. And we are darkening the outside edge of our pepper, and we are creating a nice undefined dark edge along there. So you see it's not the same width, not the same intensity or strength of color. It's important that we have that kind of variation. And we're going to bring it onto this other side of our pepper. So some places I'll put it on pretty wide, and other places it'll be more narrow. We just don't want to have it the same width everywhere. Again, add floating medium if you need to. So we've got true burgundy, sap green, creating a super dark shading color. And we're applying that at the edge of our pepper and making sure that it has variation in width. So we get a nice, interesting dark side or dark edge to our pepper. Still pretty, but still not going to eat them. Remember, one time I had been invited to dinner and was pretty excited to go. And so nothing was said about what we were having for dinner or anything. And so we were sitting down at the table, and this little covered dish comes to the table. The lid comes off and goes, "We're having sausage and peppers." And I'm like, oh no, we've got red, yellow, and green bell peppers. This is going to be a horrible, horrible night. And so you smiled, or I smiled, and I ate them and said how delicious that was.
Always taking one for the team with the bell peppers.
Well, just it's, you just have to do that sort of thing every now and then.
I'm just glad we agree on this,
Oh, sure. Well, I have several friends who do not eat any kind of seafood. If it comes out of the ocean, they want no part of it.
So that's wild to me.
Well, I don't get it either, but it's fine. Everybody is entitled to
Everybody's got their thing.
Their own personal food preferences. All right, so we have now darkness in our kind of depressions in our pepper. We've got a little extra around the outside edge. And now, before we do our black background, we're going to do a great little trick of carrying our background into our painting. All right, so I'm going to grab a 3/4 inch flat brush, and I'm going to put some pure black on my palette.
Are we doing the background before the stem?
Yes, we are, because I can't stand it anymore. I've got to have this black background and really show you how we make sure that our background is part of our painting. All right, I want to show you how the background needs to be part of our painting, and our painting needs to be part of the background. It's not like we've cut out a construction pepper and glued it down on a black background. That's not how this works. All right, so I've got floating medium on my brush, and I'm going to put black on maybe half the brush, maybe a little less than half the brush. All right, but you can see here, and this is, can you come get a super close-up of this? It goes from dark over to nothing. It doesn't go from dark over to a little dark gray, okay? Got to keep that edge of your brush clean. Super important. All right, thanks, Stephen. I am going to start, and you just have to be brave. I'm going to start with the black on the outside of my pepper and the no paint inside the pepper. But I need to make sure that I get that dark black right next to my bell pepper. All right, so I'm going to do this again, making sure my brush has good solid black on the one corner and nothing on the other half of the brush. So that as I move this along, I can create that kind of soft, mysterious lost edge on this pepper. Right here, I'm seeing gray next to my pepper and not black. So I'm going to go over that again. So now I'm just going to pick up pure black right on that brush, and above my table line I'm going to brush the edge of my dark line and let that continue out to form my background. Alright, so I'm just painting in the pure black, and you want to make sure that you get your canvas covered completely so that we don't have pinholes of white showing through.
Have you ever seen the movie Inside Out?
I'm not sure if I have or not.
It's a Pixar movie, and it's about...
Is it about the little characters in somebody's head?
It is. Yeah, that's exactly what it's about. Anyway.
Do you have little characters inside your head?
I plead the fifth. But there's two edits of that movie. There's a scene where the little girl is eating broccoli and she doesn't like it, and that's kind of what the scene is about. But in Japan, broccoli is not seen as like the gross food that all kids don't like. Over there, it's bell peppers.
Oh, how funny.
So if you look at a side-by-side comparison of that part of the movie, the one that was released in Japan, the kid's eating bell peppers.
Okay, well, I'm sure that this Japanese kids have it right.
I know, I relate to them.
I mean, I'll eat broccoli morning, noon, and night. It doesn't bother me. So before I make a mess of everything, I'm going to dry this black background. We are back, and our black background is dry, and I've put out some titanium white on my palette, and I'm also going to put out a little bit of burnt umber. So don't think we're done with our pepper, because Stephen knows we are nowhere near done with that. There's miles to go. All right, so I'm going to take some titanium white. I'm going to add a chunk of burnt umber to this. And then I'm going to wipe my palette knife off. And I'm going to add a little dab of black. All right, so this is going to be the start of our tabletop. And so I'm going to take my big brush that I painted in the background with, and I'm going to pick up this mixture. And we're going to give it a quick paint right on our canvas, right underneath our black background. And I'm going to leave just a little bit of that dark color right next to my bell pepper. And we're brushing this on very quickly and very casually, because the tabletop is not the star of this painting. And so we're going to pay it just enough attention to make it interesting, but definitely not the star of the show. All right, now I'm going to pick up a little bit of titanium white on my brush, and we're going to streak a little bit of that white on, going from edge to edge, kind of coming across the canvas. And we're not done with this, but we're done enough to dry it. All right, we are back. We have our tabletop is partially done. We're going to come back to that, but I can't wait to start putting the final highlights on our pepper before we do our stem. This is what I like to call putting the jewelry on. We're almost done, so we're going to start dressing up our pepper, and we're going to start with a little bit of our pink melon. And so kind of in this area, I'm stroking on a bit more brighter pink melon, and I'm going to add a tiny bit of white to my pink melon, and we'll add bit of a brighter highlight on here. And there's not much paint, but it does give you kind of a bright highlight, and then where it trails off you get to see the nice weave of the canvas there. So I'm kind of liking the way that's looking, and of course can't leave well enough alone, as you all know. I'm just going to put another little brush mark there, and I am going to leave that alone. And I'll take a little bit of pink melon so I don't have quite the brightness that I just had down here. And we're going to put a couple of little marks up here at the top. So using the corner of my brush, I'm adding on a pink highlight up here, and we'll add a little bit of a highlight in that area, kind of coming down there. So we've got some pink highlights coming on there, and I think that side's looking good. Now over here, let's take a little bit of that lighter pink that we used here and put some of it over here, just to give a little bit of a lighter bit of color. And I'm going to stroke this till it just comes off the edge of the pepper. So it's right off the pepper and onto the black background a little bit. And I'm going to take some of the pink melon and a little bit of apple red, so it's not quite so bright. And up here we're going to give a nice little bit of highlight that is actually spilling off of the pepper and onto that black background. So you can see that we have softened this edge even more. We did it with the True Burgundy and Sap Green to begin with. Then we came back and we added our black that softened into our pepper. And now we're taking some of our highlights and just letting them kind of brush off onto the background, creating a softer edge over here. Now let's add some lighter orange highlights on our pepper. So I'm going to take some tangerine and a little sunny yellow and just kind of brush mix a nice light highlighty color. And we'll stroke a little bit of that on right there, just to create a little bit of a highlight here. We're going to bring this brighter color on to our pepper right there. And let's make this a bit more orange and give a bright stroke, bold, confident stroke that comes from the pepper onto the black background. And I know that's kind of hard for a lot of you to do, but you got to have courage and put that sort of highlight on there. Now add some of this other highlight a bit up here. And I'm going to lighten that up a little bit more. And this is where kind of your own personality is going to come through as to how bright you put some of these highlights on your pepper. We're not putting any solid white highlights on our pepper at all, but I am going to take some really light color and come give a bit more of a highlight in just a couple of little places there. All right, it is time to turn our attention to our stem. And I'm going to switch to my number 8 flat brush, and I'm also going to put a little bit of thicket on my palette. And thicket is a nice, dull, opaque, dark green color. And so we're just going to base coat our stem with the thicket. And because I'm painting over white, it may take 2 coats for this to really give me super good coverage. So we're just filling this in solidly. And we have been painting just what I would just call a garden variety bell pepper today. But remember, there are all sorts of really beautiful peppers out there. Like you've got a nice habanero pepper, which is very yellowy orange and packs a tremendous punch. All right, so we're going to dry our stem. Now that our stem is dry, we're going to come back and give it another quick coat of thicket. So have you ever had one of those chips that is made with like the Carolina ghost peppers?
Oh, those like one chip challenge things?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I don't think I have. Wait, actually I have, but it wasn't like...
It wasn't a Carolina Reaper?
No, it wasn't like the big one. It was just that same brand.
Okay.
But it was still really hot. I mean, it was a lot.
I don't mind hot food, but I want my hot food to taste like something. I don't want hot food just for the capsaicin factor.
Yeah.
I saw some show about a restaurant in New York that has like, it's an Indian restaurant that has like some of the hottest food. And if you order this super hot dish, they make you sign a medical waiver, and you see the guy back in the kitchen who has a respirator on and goggles and everything as he's cooking this stuff. And I'm like, if your chef can't breathe when he's cooking, because it'll burn his lungs and stuff, like, let's not try to have that as a snack.
Yeah, what are we doing?
We are not having that because that's just eating fire.
I've had a Trinidad scorpion pepper before.
That sounds painful.
I think at the time it was like maybe the second or third hottest in the world.
Uh-huh.
I think Carolina Reaper was still the number one at the time.
Well, we just, no one needs to just be snacking on that, so.
Yeah, I just bit into it. It was actually in the middle of the school day. I was in like 10th grade.
And was that the end of your school day?
Actually, well, okay, so we had a substitute teacher in band, and so like we were clearly getting nothing done. And this kid like came in with a bag of peppers, and I guess he like grew them, and he was like, "You want one?" And so I was like trying to be cool, and so I said, "Yeah." And then I just bit into it, and then I like went to the bathroom and just like snotted and cried.
Okay, all right. So I've picked up some True Burgundy on one corner of my number 8 flat brush that has thicket in it, and I'm shading my bell pepper stem with this darker shading color. And we're going to create a little turn in our pepper stem. And I'm shading not quite at the edge, but following the curve of the stem, and then we'll pat some of this really dark color on where our stem joins our pepper. I don't want my food to just be incendiary like that.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, I think if something tastes good and it's hot, I don't mind, the sweat running down my head and having to ask the waiter if he could bring me a couple of more napkins so I can blot the sweat that's burning my eyes as I'm eating. As long as it's really tasty, I am there for it. But just hot food for pain, no thank you. We're just dabbing a little bit of this dark on, not really blending it in, but we've created some dark areas on our stem, and we are now going to wipe our brush really well. And I'm going to take some thicket and a little bit of my sunny yellow, and I'm making a lighter color. This is only the first step on the lightening of our stem, but I just wanted to create a lighter color, and I'm going to start where I want my stem to be the brightest, kind of up here at the top, and we're just dabbing and tapping, kind of stretching that lighter color out onto our stem. And want to get a little bit on this cut end. And this doesn't have to be smoothly blended at all. And now I'm going to wipe my brush, pick up some more sunny yellow, and create a much lighter green color. And we're going to come back and again start where we want our highlight to be the brightest. Tapping and kind of dabbing this on, creating a little bit of softness here. And that is all we need to do to the stem of our bell pepper. And we're almost done, but we still need to deal with our tabletop situation. And I'm going to pick up my brush that I had applied this color with, and you can see that I've still got plenty of nice damp paint on my brush. So we're going to touch some of this lighter color on right at the top edge of our table. I'm adding a little bit of this extra light color along the top of my table. Then we can't really get away without using our palette knife to create some texture here. So I'm picking up some of that tabletop color, and I'm picking up some white, and I'm tapping this and patting this out on my palette so I don't have too much paint on my brush. And we're going to lay this palette knife right down next to the top of the table and scrape a little bit of this color back and forth. Some going into my pepper, but most of it's sweeping off to the right, and we'll put some down here on the table. I don't want it to look like somebody's written something in Braille down here. I want a little smear of light color. And there's almost no paint left on my palette knife because I don't have much paint on it to begin with. And we'll start right over here, and we'll add a little bit just to break up this top edge so that nobody is expecting a smooth, straight, even edge there. Steven's really disappointed that we're not going to have a pepper counter on this video.
Please don't introduce that concept.
We're not doing it. No pepper counter.
Are you sure?
I'm sure. Well, I'm sure. If you do it, I'll be surprised. All right, so now we need to make a little bit of a cast shadow or a resting shadow here. So I'm rinsing off my brush, my 3/4 inch flat brush, just a little bit. And I'm going to load the brush with some burnt umber, a little true burgundy, and I'm just going to pick up a little bit of our table color. So now we've got a dark burgundy brown color on one half of the brush and our table color on the other half. And this is pretty fluid because I rinsed my brush out. Now I'm going to pick up just a little bit of extra black. So we've got super dark and then a little bit of a burgundy gray color going on. And we're going to apply this dark color right up underneath our bell pepper, and then using the chisel edge of the brush and tapping it out away from the pepper and creating a very simple little shadow. Because even though this may be magical the way you've painted this, it is not a magical floating pepper. Adding a little bit of extra dark color, and then I want to make sure that we kind of even up our shadow a little bit. And to complete that evening up of our shadow, I'm going to take some of our original table color on my palette knife, no white this time, and we're going to come right back up under that shadow and just even it up a little bit. All right, so that took care of my shadow kind of dipping down that way. All right, I'm just going to give a look at my finished painting real quick and look back at my painting that I've been doing for you today. And I think we need a little bit lighter highlight on that pepper stem. So I'm picking up a little bit more sunny yellow. And this is the one thing that I wish I could teach you all to do, and that is to evaluate your painting. Stop and look at what you've done with a critical eye, but not an unkind eye, and just see if there's anything else about your painting that you think you need to change or alter. And be really honest with yourself, because sometimes I'll look at a painting I've done and I'm like, whoa, we really need to come back over here and maybe add some red over here that's missing red there, or I don't really like the way something is looking in this area, and I'll stop and make some adjustments as needed. But you need to be able to evaluate what you've done and make sure that everything is exactly the way you want it before you consider yourself completely finished with your pepper. And I'm pretty happy with this, so I'm going to call it done. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to watch Art Talk. We really appreciate that. We'd like for you to like and subscribe. The link to the downloadable pattern is in the description box below. You can also find a link for our 17-piece curated set of folk art acrylic colors, as well as a link to our 7-piece folk art select firm bristle brush set. So if you'd like to leave a compliment, please do that below, and you can email me at art_talk@plaidonline.com. So thanks for watching Art Talk with Andy and Stephen.
Bye.